Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Implementing Gutenberg, a YouTube series where I interview somebody about how they've implemented Gutenberg on a live site. Today, my guest is Bill Erickson, a WordPress developer extraordinaire. Bill, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show and do this.
Of
We met,
course.
a year ago, maybe at WordCamp US or something like that? Like in
Uh,
real, like for
yeah, it
real,
was
like actually
there
talk,
was
right?
a conference. I don't remember which one. I think it was Post Status, maybe.
Yes,
That's what it
that's
was.
exactly what it was. Post status publish. Yeah, and so like I know like we've kind of hung around in the same circles, but that was like the first time we actually
Hmm.
hung out due to Sean Hesketh, right, a
Yep.
mutual friend of ours. So
Hmm.
cool. So I saw you kind of tweeting and blogging about how what it's like implementing Gutenberg, and that was why I reached out. So I will include the link to your blog in the description for anybody watching. But um, I know you've implemented a couple of uh, projects using Gutenberg on a couple of projects.
Hmm.
Maybe just pick one of your favorites or one that's fresh in your mind and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So this is actually a project that is still under development, so it's not live yet, but probably in the next few months it will be. We were building a site. It's rcp.com, and basically converting their current site into WordPress. It's hard coded at the moment, and it has a great looking design and nice features, but the web developer left, and then they wanted to move to WordPress. So design wise, we were just sort of trying to replicate a lot of their features. And during the process, I saw there was some good interactions for Gutenberg. We weren't designing specifically for Gutenberg. We've done that before, like where we start with the Gutenberg blocks. But on this one, it just sort of made sense. I found that there were about 9 custom blocks that we had to build to implement their features, and it just really came together better than anything else we could have done, rather than turning off the editor and building it with meta boxes or short codes or anything. So it seemed to be a really good fit for what a good Gutenberg site would be.
Cool, very cool. So so I like that. So you didn't try to like force Gutenberg into some project just to use it. You kind of looked at the specs for this website, a static website, you said, um, and then thought, all right, Gutenberg would actually be a good fit based on the content that they have, right?
Yeah, I actually surprised my designer because we've done a few of these projects where we design it for Gutenberg, where we start with, here are all the core blocks. Now let's design how they look. Now let's assemble the pages by stacking the blocks in different orders. So we've done, those are like what my designer thought were our Gutenberg sites. He delivers me these designs and I tell him I'm using Gutenberg. He's like, what? You can use Gutenberg for this? And I'm like, yeah, it'll work great. And I find that Gutenberg works really well. Like it's a block-based content editor.
Mhm.
It's not a page builder, but if you have unique content blocks, so something that's sort of visually interesting that would be difficult to do in the classic editor, it works great for it. Like having a lot of like call to actions or like call out boxes or think like widget-like things. One of the things on this site, they had a newsletter section. They do monthly newsletters, and there's probably 10 or 12 articles within it. And at the top, there is like a table of contents, and you can click through and go down to that section. Rather than hard coding all of that in every single newsletter, I created a table of contents block. They just drop it in there. It automatically finds every H2 in the page. If they have put an anchor link, it uses that. If not, it adds anchor links to every heading and then allows them to
Wow.
click through it. So simple things like that where they're assembling it and they're like, I need a table of contents. Now I need to type my heading and add a separator. It flowed really well with Gutenberg.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then you have this dynamic Gutenberg block. Did you use this is like this wasn't
Hmm.
predetermined this question, but did you use like the ACF block builder or did you build that in React?
I've used the ACF block builder for that one, but I mean, in the editor itself, we're not doing anything real special. It just has a message that says this will list out the headings because I didn't want
Nice.
to go and mess around with the Gutenberg editor too much on
Yeah.
that one. And then on the front end, we're just filtering the content, finding all the H2s and adding IDs and things. So yeah, it's mostly it's just PHP, so yeah, we're not using React on that block.
No, but that's cool. I really like that, right? And that makes sense, right? Because then if they add the table of contents block and then decide, oh, we need to add a link here, now you're causing stress on the admin that you don't necessarily need, like processing stress.
Yeah,
Just
I
to
don't want it to
update
be like
the
live
content.
refreshing
Yeah, right.
everything. Like they don't
Yeah.
need that. They just need to know that this is where a table of
This is
contents
yeah.
for
Yeah,
this
exactly.
specific content
Right.
context.
Right. And I mean, to that point, like people are saying that Gutenberg is WYSIWYG, but it's not really. It's more WYSIWYG than the classic
Mhm.
editor. But you're not seeing your actual theme or the actual styles. So it's not like you need something that's like super feature complete on every change either. So I really like that approach. Um, so you answered this a little bit already, but what's one thing that you think Gutenberg lends itself, since this is still being developed,
Mhm.
super well to? What something that Gutenberg makes easier for this project?
Yeah, I would say content that's just a little bit more complex than just sort of the standard text. So if you're just dealing with a few headings and paragraphs, that'll work the same whether it's in the classic editor or the Gutenberg editor. Just standard text seems to be fine. But where Gutenberg really shines is the areas where you need something a bit more complex than that. And prior to Gutenberg, you would depend upon short codes, or I'd often use shortcode UI so that
Mhm.
we could insert a shortcode and then render it in the page, so it gave a Gutenberg-like experience. And so that's what we were using, or custom meta boxes and stuff. And I find that the new Gutenberg editor allows us to do a lot more with the standard editor. And so we're less reliant on meta boxes and shortcodes and adding new functionality in that way. And so it gives the client a lot more flexibility, because these tools that we build for them, they can then use on any of their templates. So before, I probably would have made a newsletter page template,
Mhm.
and then all of these special features like the table of contents would have been automatically added at the top, or built through the meta box or something. And so it'd be sort of hard coded-ish. But now, because I've been able to build it as a block, they can throw it anywhere else. So if they want it on their privacy policy page, they can just drop it there.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's a great point, right? Because now you don't need to create a custom template, or maybe even a custom post type, right? Like you don't necessarily need a newsletter custom post type. It could just be a category of the regular blog post or something like that.
Yeah, I find that building on top of Gutenberg, like it's increased what the average user can do with the editor. They're able to make more feature-rich content easier. And so we're able to focus our time on building more generic tools that allow them to build out their pages. I also really like the reusable blocks. So like we have
Yeah.
join our newsletter call to action. And so rather than hard coding that and making it a short code or something, we made it like a call to action block, type in the newsletter stuff, and then click save as reusable. And so they can insert that everywhere. And so it's sort of a lot of the functionality that we've been sort of tacking on to WordPress. Like I would build that as a short code with shortcode UI, and then a theme settings page where they could manage the text of it. So it's sort of checking the box on the things that I used to have to go around WordPress to do. Now it can be done inside.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a great I really love what you said they're tacking on, right? Or you're a Genesis, you do a lot of
Hmm.
Genesis work,
Yep.
right? Like the prescribed method of adding something like a pricing table in
Hmm.
the current iteration of Studio Press themes or Genesis themes is copy the HTML from the documentation and post it in the
Hmm.
visual editor of the classic editor. With Gutenberg, you don't need to do that really. Like I imagine that Studio Press will start rolling out either just generic classes for the columns block or their own pricing table blocks so that you don't need to mess around with HTML anymore just to have a pricing table.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, for features like that, it's going to be great. And also, in more generic terms, the way StudioPress themes have been approached in the past is they use widget areas for the homepage
Mhm.
because Classic Editor wasn't able to build a complex page, so now they're depending on widgets. But with Gutenberg, they're like, well, now we can do a lot more with the editor, so they're going to be rebuilding those, making them actual Gutenberg blocks with columns and things. And with StudioPress plus now their purchase of Atomic Blocks, you're going to have a deeper integration there. So instead of saying copy this HTML, this is your pricing table, there's going to be pricing table option in Atomic Blocks, and then all of the all of the StudioPress themes will work with that. So it helps them build more rich templates, lets you build more rich things without having to do a lot of custom coding on your own.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm very excited to see. I mean, it's a bunch of smart guys, and when they
Yeah.
picked up atomic blocks, they got even smarter guys. So um, even more smarter guys, I should say, not even smarter guys. So I'm really excited to see what direction all of that goes in with Studio Press. So cool. I think that's probably the perfect use case. Plus, this is a client that has never used WordPress before, or never used it, at least on this site. So they don't have that preconceived notion of how WordPress is supposed to work.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another one of the deciding factors we've been using when deciding whether to use Gutenberg or not. If it's a brand new site, I don't want to train them on an interface that's going to change in a few months. So I'd
mhm,
rather get them started with what's coming. And if it's a fairly simple site, then there's no reason for us not to build it on top of Gutenberg. Some of our more complex sites are still using the classic editor because we depend upon it in certain ways. And so we're sort of planning what we're going to do in the future. And in some other pages, on some sites, we'll use Gutenberg for most things, and then like maybe the home page and a landing page are gonna like remove both the classic editor and Gutenberg and build that with meta boxes, which is
mhm.
like how we build our more advanced pages. But yeah, I've found that for new sites, for simple sites, and for these more advanced content block like sites, Gutenberg brings a ton of value, and so we're more willing to push through whatever little bugs there might be, and to do a bit more extra training for the client to give them a better product at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's great. I really love that. And so we've been basically all smiles here so far. But what's a challenge that you've hit because of using Gutenberg?
I would say there's two challenges. One is like the more immediate one is when you're building something out and you find a bug,
Mhm.
and whether it's an actual bug or like something that stops work, or it's just something that doesn't work well, like a usability issue. Those are annoying. And so I usually try and at the end of every few days or every week, when I make sort of a list of all the things that bugged me when I was building out this Gutenberg site, and then I go and post them as issues and try and get these things resolved before the client gets it in their hands. For instance, on one of the sites we built, we used the columns block a lot, and then we also used a shortcode block to insert icons and things. Like the shortcode block has like a label here, and then the shortcode here, and inside of the columns block, you ended up having one character per line in the shortcode, and so it was
Mm.
like this tall and pretty much unusable. So things like that, usability bugs that will be fixed before launch, but it's a little bit of a pain when you're building a site with beta software for a client. And then the other bigger issue that we've had is the fact that the styles keep changing inside of the Gutenberg editor. And so we'll style the block quote in Gutenberg to match the front end. And then after a few releases, they add some new things and add new block quote options, and then we have to go back and do it again. But those are both fairly minor. And once Gutenberg becomes official, you're going to have less of those issues, I think.
Yeah, yeah. That's well, so first of all, I like what you said about when you find bugs, you report
Mhm.
them, right? I think that's the most constructive thing you can do. Unless you're a React developer, then like go grab a couple maybe if you have some time
Yeah.
and fix them yourself. I am certainly not that, and I don't want to hurt the project, so I'm not going to go fix bugs, but report everything that you find. There's like a feedback button
Mhm.
inside the Gutenberg plugin too. Um, and I totally understand what you're saying about the styles keep changing. We were talking about this in the pre-show, but I kind of based my course off of their feature complete date.
Mhm.
And like even a week before launch, it doesn't seem like things are feature complete. Like little things keep changing, and that is a little bit of a frustration, but it's like you said, it's not a deal breaker by any stretch. So cool, very cool. And as we kind of wrap this up, um what advice do you have for folks who want to start using Gutenberg on their actual like live projects today?
So I would definitely encourage you to start testing your site in Gutenberg now. Um, Create a staging environment or a local dev environment, install the plugin, see how the default editor works. There's also some tools or some approaches you can use to add new Gutenberg features to your site. So some of the Gutenberg features depend upon your theme supporting them. So an existing theme won't have support for like the wide or full images or editor styles. And so if you go look at the handbook or the blog post that I assume is going to be attached to this, I wrote a bunch of different theme settings that you can add to your theme to add theme support for all these nice new features. So set up your color palettes to match your brand and set up wide images and stuff like that. So there's some things you can do to sort of get more out of Gutenberg. But really, I just say start playing with it and see how you'll work with your content. I mean, for most content, it's just going to be the same, but maybe a little better. It's like a standard content pages like blog posts and things. You're not going to have any issues there. It's going to be the same as you're used to. Your more advanced pages, you might need some work or maybe think through some things. But Gutenberg gives you a lot more tools than TinyMC had. So you'll probably be better off when you're building out these things. You'll have more tools in your pocket to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good advice. I'll plug kind of two things of my own. I have a theme course that I developed with Zach Gordon. So you can find that in the show notes below. I'm certain that we've probably used your blog at some point for reference. Uh, um, and as this episode is released, Gutenberg is set to come out in less than a week. On Gutenberg launch day, I am going to upgrade my WooCommerce and LMS site on a staging server, but live in real time. So if you're interested in seeing what that's going to look like, there's a sign up button in the description for this video below. Bill, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And thanks to everybody else out there. If you are interested in starting with Gutenberg and WordPress 5.0, do it today. Install it on a dev server like Bill said, and just start playing around. And until next time, get out there and build something. Hey, everybody. I hope you liked that installment of this mini-series implementing Gutenberg. If you want to know how you can implement Gutenberg, you can check out my course, Gutenberg for Freelancers. It gives you an overview of exactly how Gutenberg works, and then there's an entire section on how to prepare your client for Gutenberg. Email scripts, checklists, how to approach things, and case studies. So if you want to learn more, you can click the link in the description below, or I think it's showing somewhere on this screen. And until next time, get out there and build something.